What happens when a leader becomes emotionally or physically spent? Not much good. Hi, this is Barry, folks, a 10-minute Torah, day 4 of Chukat. Let's continue in Bamidbar, or Numbers chapter number 20, continuing the saga now after the sister of Moshe, Miriam, has passed away. Verse 7 says, And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Take the rod and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron. You shall speak to the rock. That's the verb there. You are to speak to the rock before their eyes, and it shall give its water, and you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their livestock. Moshe took the rod from before Yahweh, as he had commanded him. Moshe and Aaron assembled the assembly before the rock, and he said to them, Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? And Moshe lifted his hand, struck the rod twice with his rod, and much water came out, and the congregation and their livestock drank. Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, Because you did not believe me, to set me apart in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you do not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. Not much good. We have a tendency in the body of Messiah to look upon certain ones with exceptional favor and gratitude, perhaps, but we tend to build at least short pedestals and put people on them and elevate them because of maybe a list or a string of successes. Maybe they have accomplished much. Maybe they have ministered effectively in behalf of your needs. Perhaps they have done the miraculous at points, or they have been able to speak a word that was just right there for you. It's dangerous to do that, because those that we pin medals on the lapel of and laud them, and people are worthy of honor. I get that. But people are people, and that means they're human. If Moshe, who had stood and remained face to face with the Most High for extended periods of time, 40 days at a time, being supernaturally sustained in his body and being, to receive the word of the Torah, to hear completely, verbatim, word for word, syllable for syllable, the very word of the Most High from Yah's own mouth, audibly, to exit a tent from meeting with Yah, and his face glows so brightly that they had to put a veil over it. The man was exceptional. To begin his ministry at 80 years of age, and then continue that ministry for another 40 years and not lose his strength. Moshe didn't die at 120 years of age because he was tired and worn out. The man climbed a mountain, and he didn't die of a heart attack for doing so. What an incredible man that he was. Yet Moshe could become distraught. This is the man that on multiple occasions stood between Yah and his line of fire at the children of Israel, pleaded for Israel's, for their lives and for their continuance. More than once, Yah said, I'll start all over with you, sir. And Moshe said, no. This is a man that has never been replicated other than by Yeshua, and Yeshua excelled beyond. But even Yeshua grew tired. And there were times he said, we need to come away for some rest. It's easy, very easy, to get caught up in the realm of responsibilities and the next task at hand and obligations that you feel toward your job, your family, your community, your congregation, whatever situation you may be facing. And I'm not talking about, well, let's just try to get a good night's sleep. There are times that the body just needs a break. The mind needs a break, especially when you have been extra tasked and stretched because of maybe a prolonged illness or the death of a loved one or some other kind of crisis situation. What happened here, though? Moshe obviously is grieving. His sister has died. And it doesn't seem to suggest in Scripture that the people were especially moved by this death situation. They just immediately started complaining, well, where's the water? Miriam always turned the spigot on for us, so to speak, so who's going to turn the water on? We're getting thirsty out here. And they mumbled and grumbled at Moshe and Aaron, and Moshe took it evidently personally. You can't shed a tear for my sister, but you're begging for water out of this rock. Well, I'll show you some water out of this rock. Yah gave the command and said, speak to it, Moshe. Moshe prophesied the way Miriam prophesied. All you have to do is reveal to the people through a prophetic word of speaking to the rock and declaring who the rock is, and the water will flow again. Show the people that the key is not physical effort. It's not anger. It's not banging your head against the rock to get the water to flow. It is speaking and prophesying. Therein is a clue for us. When we are task-oriented and trying to check things off of our punch list and just trying to get through to the end of the day, and hopefully we can get all the stuff that's in front of us done because we got another list for tomorrow. Banging your head against that and just gutting it out with sheer effort alone may not be the way to do it. There has to be some speaking involved. And I'm not talking about standing around and talking and never doing anything. But let me give you a clue from a pastor I had when I was a kid. Herbert Stone was a fine pastor. He had his faults. He had some disagreements that I had with him. But I remember him as an anointed man that preached powerfully and changed lives. And he was a steady man. He just kept at it. He had been a coal miner at some point and had some damage, an accident, and partially crippled one of his legs. So he couldn't really bend that knee and that leg area. So to pray, rather than getting on his knees, he sat at his desk. And when he sat at his desk, I had another fellow pastor tell me, he said, I tried to pray with Herbert Stone. He said, I couldn't do it. The man's too violent. I thought, he sits at his desk. How can he? But he would rake his hands back and forth across that desk and just, in a manner of speaking, just tore into prayer. But he also had been known to make a statement. There's so much work to be done today. It's going to take 2, maybe 3 hours of prayer to get it all done. I won't tell you that I think about that every day, but there are times that it comes to mind that if we will settle the issues in front of us in prayer first, speaking to the need, speaking to our situations, it will not only enable us to see the scene set to get the work done, but it ministers to our spirit, rejuvenates us, calms us, and re-energizes us so that we can do a good job. Something to think about. Hope to see you again tomorrow. So then, shalom.